Today on Eternal Conversations, we have Jessie Castille. He is a philosopher, a mathematician, a computer scientist, a rational, analytical thinker, a logician, and an all-around great guy. So, earlier we were talking about so many different topics to cover. Something I've been thinking about lately, and I like to talk to Jessie because I like to get a really rational, logical explanation for a lot of things. Because I'm kind of like more artistic, even though I'm a philosopher too, and so are you. Because philosophy is also, to me, is like the mathematics of language, in a way, or that's the way that it should be. And so the mathematics of language in order to figure out truth or falsity. But so sometimes I like to ask Jessie a lot of questions just to get more of he's a really analytical, logical, rational thinking dude. And so I was contemplating earlier, why are we hairless apes? Let's try to figure this out, man. Like, that is such a great mystery I thought about. And it is a big deal. Why are we the only apes that are hairless? And probably like one of the only mammals that are hairless as we are. Most certainly the mammals that are on ground.
So I've seen some documentaries and stuff, and one of the theories I've seen thrown out there is that our ancestors came from Africa, and Africa is a hot place. Mm-hmm. And due to our physiology, we have a lot of internal heat that needs to be dissipated.
Yeah.
And
that is a good one. I do like that one. But are there not other mammals in Africa which have hair?
Yep.
I don't know.
It's not a mammal thing, it's a brain thing.
Oh.
That's the theory I've seen put out there.
What is that explanation?
Basically, the brain generates a lot of heat, and because we have larger brains, we need to get rid of more heat.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other one would be from wearing clothes. We've needed hair less, and maybe having hair would even be a problem if you wear clothes. So the hair just isn't necessary and maybe harmful.
One of my friends said, maybe it's because we've been wearing clothes for so long.
Yeah, it could be.
But then I said, what about the face?
That could be just cosmetic.
And he said, yeah, but other apes don't have hair on their faces. And I said, oh yeah, I guess that's true. Because monkeys and apes are social creatures.
Well, do you ever see the apes?
So we can see our facial movement more, and it helps us to communicate.
You ever see apes have less hair on their faces than other parts of their bodies? It seems like it to me.
Yeah, I know. And we have less hair on our faces than other parts of our bodies.
Yeah.
So you have a beard,
kind of opposite.
Beard and mustache, but that's a lot of hair. You could have a lot of hair if they grow out like super big and long. Mm. But
But a lot of those things are just cosmetic, really.
And then what's strange about that is
like why does a peacock have a tail? It's just that catches the eye of
Oh yeah, and so it's social creatures. We're able to communicate sexually to find mates, and the communication of love and warmth, and it's a huge communication tool, facial expression, for sure. Like, you almost don't even need to hear what the other person is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Just like by reading their facial structure alone. Expressions, I mean. I'm trying to see this, and then there's this condition. Well, there's a condition where people actually look like werewolves. They have hair on their face, and their whole body is covered with hair, some of them.
Every so often you see that on Discovery Channel. They have these guys that are famous for that, really. Just being covered in hair like an ape, really.
Like I read about this woman, Julia Pastrana, indigenous woman from Mexico. She was born with the genetic condition hypertrichosis terminalis. Her face and body were covered with straight black hair. Her eyes and nose were unusually large, and her teeth were irregular. So some people have they look like real life werewolves. You know, and so I wonder if that's a throwback to evolution. Is it a disorder, a disease, or a condition, or is it just, you know, like a genetic something that was genetically suppressed a million years ago, popping up accidentally?
Well, what's the difference between a disorder and a ordinary trait?
Yeah.
One is useful and the other's not, right?
Yeah, right. It's deemed a disorder.
Yeah. So maybe some things are not, but they seem to be.
Even like mental illnesses, like bipolar and stuff, or schizophrenia. Some people are mentally ill, but it's only a mental illness if it's only a mental illness if it's not controllable. Like if somebody is able to control schizophrenia into art and film and things like that. Some people who make movies must think they have to be schizophrenic.
Maybe it's not a binary thing, you know. That some traits, well, maybe they're somewhat good, but in excess they're bad, you know.
Yeah.
Like say, well, maybe you might think it's good to be tall, but if you're too tall, then you have some disadvantages, right?
Yeah, like 9 feet.
Yeah. Well, then maybe your heart won't work, or you'll fall and die. You know, trip and fall and die, hitting your head because you're so high off the ground.
Yeah. I remember once learning that the reason why people can't grow, or living creatures, but people in this case, can't grow to be a certain height, was because the rest of their body and their organs and the like would not be able to keep up or sustain them. And I used to think, yeah, but why can't everything grow? What if everything grew at the same time, like to the same height? You know, so if someone grew 15 feet tall and all their organs and everything, if you could just sort of take that person like on a picture on an iPhone and just do and just enlarge them, and everything about them stayed the same, you know, why couldn't they have no complications at all? Maybe it has something to do with gravity. Maybe gravity,
strength of materials, that you know, the bones are not strong enough to hold up that much weight.
Oh, I see. The strength of the materials and the physical laws on those materials, such as gravity.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's real good. I don't know. I was just thinking one day, why are we hairless apes? And it makes us, so we are mammals. We have hair, skin, teeth, nails, give live birth, everything You know, even though most people don't like to think of us as mammals, that doesn't we are, you know, the word animals might be offensive to some people, but mammals is just a straight fact. But what makes us, and we are strangely, like, exponentially more intelligent or capable than like human beings compared to the rest of the animal kingdom. There's, I mean, we make planes, we make cars, we make computers. You know, we can contemplate our own death. Mathematics. We're so far advanced in comparison. I know everything is good at what it does. Like a wasp is good at what it does. It has its own reality, and I'm sure it's intelligent for what it does. But they don't make like planes and cars and computers, you know. It's just strange, you know. It's just strange evolutionary wise how we are so, and maybe it's because we're so intelligent that in comparison that we're in a position to be able to talk about it. But it's so strange that the level is like exponentially higher than the rest. Our brain size is extremely, I mean, it's way larger than other mammals, except for dolphins. Dolphins actually have brains which are very comparable and even more complex in some ways. But they don't have the hands and the tool and the thumbs, and they don't have certain things that we do to make them capable of building anything. So I don't know. What do you think about how do I don't know how we wound up with being hairless apes with large brains? Did aliens come down and have sex with apes?
No. It's not too hard to imagine a path for evolving large brains and this type of obsession with intelligence, right? It's like the peacock's tail for us, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I could see that.
as for why other animals don't seem to get that far, who knows? Maybe they did at one point and we killed them all, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There are some hypotheses about other species of human-like apes that were killed off by early humans.
Oh yeah, right.
You ever see any of that stuff?
Other species of apes that were killed off by humans. Well, Neanderthals, right?
Yeah, like Neanderthals. Maybe there was another one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean.
But don't you think it's possible that the aliens were riding around one day and landed on the planet and saw these monkeys that were like halfway evolved, and they were like,
and they just couldn't help themselves.
Yeah, and they were like, man, just don't tell anybody.
I'm pretty sure
I'm just gonna a couple of drunk aliens riding around in outer space, it's all this planet, and it was like, man, this looks like a cool place to stay. It's a blue planet, and there's life here, and there's some apes that are pretty, or maybe they just were like really responsible and said, we're gonna help these apes out. We're gonna give them an injection and help them out.
Nah.
But isn't that more plausible than creationism?
Well, in the same ballpark, I would say.
Because the advancement of the human brain, the evolution of the human brain to the size. Last I heard that the evolution of the human brain occurred in 2 million years, like to get as big as it did, and that is a huge mystery, a huge evolutionary mystery. Like that's unaccounted for.
Somehow I doubt that. It's not that crazy. 2 million years is a long time.
Yeah.
Like just look at what we do to animals in a short time, like a couple generations of selective breeding. You end up with these weird looking animals.
Oh yeah, with dogs too. Plants.
Yeah. A lot of the plants and animals we have are engineered, basically.
Yeah.
And they've been engineered for hundreds of years.
And some plants have only been engineered in the past 20, 40 years, and they've made phenomenal leaps in what they can do.
Maybe it's not a widely recognized way of looking at this situation, but that's what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
simple genetic engineering,
or like the 20th century. So much happened in the 20th century, evolutionary wise, technologically wise. I mean, in comparison to other countries, centuries. So say like in the 1600s, not that much was happening from 1620 to 1690. But from 1920 to 1990, with planes and computers and cars and technology in general, a whole hell of a lot happened. We went from just a crop duster plane to flying jets in World War I, like fighter jets. In World War II, jets dropping nuclear bombs on countries. So like in the 1900s, so much happened. It was like a hyper evolutionary stage for humanity. Whereas in the 1400s, 1300s, 1200s, 1100s, 15, most times before that, 1800s was some stuff started happening, industrially wise. Industrial revolution. That's like what kickstarted the gaining of materials for the technology that was about to happen in the 1900s. But yeah, so I see what you mean. I get your point. So things can be engineered. Evolutionary change can happen in spurts. Like the 1900s versus the 1300s. Yeah, that's a pretty good answer. I like that. So yeah. What do you think? So what do you think about higher dimensions in mathematics? Higher dimensional mathematical computations. Bullshit or not?
In computations?
Yeah, like, so the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th dimensions can be proved mathematically on paper. But we can't experience them because we're three-dimensional creatures. So we can never experience that, just like a two-dimensional creature can never experience 3 dimensions. Because it's just not built that way. Like our brain is only, we're three-dimensional creatures because our brain is only, designed, built, evolved to experience life in 3 dimensions, and it helps us to survive. There's no problem with that. But they could prove higher dimensions on paper. What do you think about that?
I don't have much of an opinion about that because I
like Michio Kaku's hyperspace?
I avoid all that stuff.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, pretty much.
Why?
Just doesn't interest me that much.
Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't?
Nah.
Oh. Why not? I'm just curious. Because you spend a lot of time in the mathematical world.
Yeah, but that's pretty much unrelated, I would say.
So
like it's not directly related unless you pursue that topic, you know.
Yeah.
The physics and whatnot.
Yeah.
And since I wasn't a physicist, I didn't really care for it.
Yeah. So do you think that reality is mathematical? Or do you think that, or is it the case that man invented the measuring stick? Man invented that's a metaphysical question. That's pretty good. Do numbers really exist? Are they man-made constructs, or do they really exist in the world?
I would say they're man-made, but they're made to describe something which exists.
Like quantity. It seems like quantity, though, would have to exist. You know, if you have one pebble and you have 2 pebbles, you can call it whatever you want. Blah, blah, blue, and blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter. It's still because it's like there's one quantity of something existing and another, like there's a quantity of 2 items existing in the same space and being described. So it seems like there would have to be 2 items, regardless of what the language is being used to describe it. But maybe there's not the case. There's probably a way where that's not the case. Someone could probably argue that 1 + 1 does not equal 2. I bet it's been done before.
Yeah. Well, if you let's see. I suppose if you had if you didn't have a concept of 2, then you'd have no way to put it into words that it's 2. You just say, "Oh, I have some of this."
Yeah. 1 and then some.
Sure.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, and then if there is such thing as infinity, which infinity is
like what's special about 1 or 2? You know, if say you have some beads like this, right?
Yeah.
Too many to count. Why is this number any different from 1 or 2? You know, in an abstract way.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. So like it's just
maybe you have no word for this number of beads. I mean, we know practically we do have a word for this, but let's say this was sand.
Yeah.
You have some truckload of sand.
I don't have a word for it.
Well, I mean, I'm sure.
I could count them.
Yeah, if we counted them, we could.
I could count them, but I mean,
what's that?
But a text message. It's the Vice City when you complete a mission.
Yeah.
I better turn this off. But yeah. But you do have a good point. So if you have the pile of beads there, I just would say those are some beads, or a pile of sand.
Yeah.
And who's going to count every sand granule in a pile of sand? You'd have to be really bored.
Yeah. So say like
nobody's going to do that.
Say you have a truckload of sand and you don't. I mean, I'm sure there's a name even for the number of grains of sand in a truck, right?
Yeah.
But say just the number of atoms or something, right?
Yeah.
Is there does that number exist? Just because it's too big to have a name that no one ever needed to name it anything?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say that number exists as an idea, right? So it seems therefore that the name we give to the number is just a tool for describing the idea that we come up with, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I totally get what you're saying, even just from the beads or the pile of sand.
Yeah.
It's like, here is a pile of beads.
Pile of something, right? It's countable. Like we know what that means, right?
It is countable, but
in principle, like they're discrete items, right? You can distinguish them from each other.
Yeah, they are. It is in theory possible to count the grains in a truck of sand, but it's not practical.
Yeah.
And so it's unnecessary, even.
Well, even if
absolutely
it was
unnecessary. So, go ahead.
Isn't that kind of moot though? I mean, whether it's necessary or not. If you want to answer the question, do numbers exist?
Yeah.
Well, does that number exist before you give it a name? Like there are certainly some numbers that don't have names.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe some masochist has come up with a huge list of rules for naming these things, right?
Yeah.
But notwithstanding that.
Yeah. Man. That's a doozy though. So what about, so how does evolution, mathematics, and atheism all intertwine? So what about God? Why does God not make sense? I can say, give reasons for how God does make sense. And I used to be pretty atheistic, and I'm not so much anymore. There is no reason, first of all, there is no reason to me to believe in a God. We're just animals, and we die like other animals and turn to dirt, and that's it. From what our eyes can see, from a scientific point, then that's all there is. There's no evidence to me for God or for an afterlife, but there are certain considerations that I thought of, such as like a life force, like there's obviously a huge difference between life and inanimate objects, such as rocks. There's a huge obvious difference. And so you could say, well, life evolved from something, from way back in time. Like it first started off with single cellular organisms. But where did that life itself is so different from non-living things, and that life, and then the will to live. So I often thought of, what about frogs? Or a frog, for an example. Why does a frog fight for its life? Why does a frog have the will to live? Now you could say, well, that the frogs that had a will to live reproduced and went down the chain, and so frogs in the future, which had the will to live, were able to reproduce more effectively than the ones that did not. But where did that will to live come from in the first place? Like the very first frogs, or whatever came before that. I don't know. It just seems like there's such a huge difference between life and non-life, and that we are like electrical beings. We really are. We operate on electricity, the central nervous system, our brains and our nerves, and so we're on this low voltage electrical system. You can look at it very practically, logically, that it's we're electrical. That's it. So what? Just like the lights and switches and stuff. So what? No big deal.
I think that's a very realistic view. Like why is that significant that they're electrical?
Yeah.
Instead of, aqueous or something like that, they're just full of water. Why is water not special and electricity is special?
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems to be the difference between life and non-life, man. It's kind of like the difference between hair and no hair, or big brains and literal brains, or the difference between human beings and other creatures. It's so different, that it almost makes us seem like aliens, even though we're not. We are. You can't separate a human from its environment. The environment is, Earth, and being above water and breathing air and not having gills, where that's the properties, characteristics of human being, but then just the environment. I guess it's kind of different for us because we live all over the planet, but you still can't separate a human being from its environment somewhere on Earth, on top of ground, for the most part. Sometimes I seem to get off topic a little bit, but kind of go all around. But
that's good, so I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah. So that's it. Those are things that make me think that maybe there's a God, but not a God in Jesus or Islam or Buddha or none of these people like that. I think that if there's a God, then he, she, or it would be bigger than a religion, bigger than any human descriptions. To me, I guess you could think, I would think of God as being more like a novelty creating machine, or something in the backdrop, or like something that where life force originates, but not something that, the God would not be something that is also controlling anything or judging anything. You know, just kind of like is what it is. Like it's the source of where life originates. The source of where life originates, and it's sort of like present in all things. So, like energy is simply energy. I mean, energy is simply matter. Ugh. Matter is simply energy condensed to a slow vibration. So all of matter contains energy, is made of energy actually. And like, so this table, the atoms are so moving so fast and they're so close together and they're vibrating so fast and so densely that I can't put my finger through it or my hand. But the air, the atoms and molecules are a lot looser and not vibrating as quickly and as densely together. So there's energy everywhere in the universe. And that energy is what provides the electricity, which provides the life force. So that energy, it has to have some sort of source. Unless it's the universe is infinite. So unless infinity is true, which infinity is definitely something that is considered in mathematics, right?
Yeah, but in a different sense.
Like the symbol for infinity, you know, is used. What is infinity in mathematics?
That's a surprisingly complicated question, and I don't know if I could explain it to you very simply. You know,
well,
there are degrees of infinity.
Okay.
So you have like countable infinity, which is what you get from just counting, right? If you can,
if you count it like start at 1 and just count,
or start at anything and count.
Yeah,
because you can actually relate any sequence back to a sequence starting at 1.
Okay.
Any countable sequence you can relate back to something starting at 1 and increasing by 1 every time.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe that's not exactly true, but you know, as far as I remember, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a topic that you come across very often in studies, you know.
Yeah.
At least not for what I was focusing on, but
yeah.
The other infinity that's big is uncountable. So, yeah, it is what it sounds like, right?
Like say
basically just the opposite of countable, right?
Yeah. So like pi, you know, 3.14 to infinity. Like, I don't know, man.
What about it?
I guess I'm trying to figure out if infinity is true, and it's also
it's not really a statement, right?
What?
Infinity. Like what are you trying to propose here?
Does infinity actually exist?
In some contexts, it's just a convenient.
Is it possible? Infinity.
Physically, most people would say no, it's not possible. But infinity as an abstraction is used for simplifying a lot of things. So even though it doesn't actually exist, right?
So it's a useful tool
Yeah, like you know about imaginary numbers. You heard about this?
No.
Well, in algebra, right? Complex numbers. Do you remember any of that?
No, not really.
Well, it's not actually imaginary. It's a modified number system, which
Like, give me an example.
well, complex numbers typically, when you talk about them, they have an imaginary component, which is expressed with a constant and I, right? So something times I.
Yeah.
I is the component for imaginary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, which is supposed to be the square root of -1.
Okay.
Which is why it's called imaginary. But anyway, it's a useful tool for solving some problems, and infinity is a lot like that. So it doesn't matter if it exists, like if you can identify something that's actually infinite, because it's really just made up in a way to solve problems.
Yeah. So,
Kind of like an approximation. Infinity is used like that in some contexts.
so it's kind of like if you have your back to the wall, just claim infinity.
Yeah, like if it's so big you don't care if it's a little bigger, a little smaller. Just say, oh, it's infinite. It's just impossibly large to even think about. Then yeah, just say it's infinite.
In philosophy, academic philosophy, anytime philosophers got their back to the wall, they would just invoke God. It's happened, so many times, especially in modern philosophy. If you can't figure it out, just invoke God.
Well, I feel like that's kind of where you were going with that life stuff. Like where does life come from? Where does energy come from?
Yeah.
That's really what you're hinting at, isn't it?
Yeah. Kind of invoking God, like, how can there possibly be a life force, which definitely seems so unique and different than something that's not alive. So there must be some sort of life source or life force.
I don't think it's that clear, actually.
Okay.
Of course, I'm not a biologist, but
yeah,
I think the definition that they have for life is really kind of arbitrary and made up to cover all the things that they felt were alive.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It means it reproduces and it maybe regenerates itself or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where that comes from. But it doesn't mean that definition is special.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know.
So what if there were simpler things than single-celled organisms? Like say some even simpler ones than what we have now, and they just died off.
Like some kind of just like blobs of protein that had some sort of
like basically
electromagnetic force that kind of like caused them to send like one signal like every day or something. So there had to be some action involved for it to be alive, but just less communication and movement than single cell.
So back when I was kind of either newly converted atheist or getting away from religion, I bought a textbook about the origins of life.
Yeah.
And being the lazy person I am sometimes, I never read it. But some of the stuff in there was just about simple chemical reactions that advance themselves. And the hypothesis seemed to be that somehow they got contained in structures that would, resemble cells, and
Yeah.
and over time they became more like cells. And
Yeah. I don't know, man. It just seems so strange. Or maybe it's not strange. Maybe I'm just overthinking it.
it's hard to think about because we're not experts on it, right?
Yeah.
But I know there's something to it from just my research on it.
It's sort of like infinity. Like, I don't think that we can possibly, I don't think that our human brains can really, truly, possibly fathom infinity. It's sort of like the asteroid or the meteor that destroyed the dinosaurs 60 million years ago. 60 million years ago. I mean, yeah, it's a number. Yeah, it's a fact. Yeah, it's conceptually understandable in comparison to 200 million years ago and 100 years ago. It's relative. But to really, really imagine, really, really be able to picture 60 million years ago. We have only been alive for 30-something years. And so our reference point only can go back, during that time period.
I think you're right. When it comes to large numbers, we can't really, at least not off the cuff, visualize them, right?
Yeah.
Like say, can you imagine 1,000 items right now? Right, that you can't easily come up with a picture for it.
Yeah.
That's just 1,000, right?
And then if you say items, then not like shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
Just items. Like,
yeah,
your monsters going crazy.
Not even something continuous, which would be like a distance, right?
Yeah.
Like time or a physical distance. Just say, keep it simple. Just say items, right?
Yeah, that boggles your mind. 1,000 items.
And maybe you could sit there and come up with some analogies to help you out. You could say, your fingernail is got this thickness, so that's like 1 unit, and going across this room is like a million of those or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these are all like tools. You're kind of cheating when you do that, right?
Yeah.
You're not thinking about it in the same way as you think about small things, small quantities.
So
I guess what I'm getting at is, if you can't even imagine these finite quantities, how are you supposed to imagine infinite quantities?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that is, I think, completely impossible.
It's not completely impossible, but you end up making these tools to help you think about it, and you're really just looking through a peephole at the reality of the thing, because it's so weird to you that you can't relate it to anything in real life, right?
Oh, but I thought of some a way that you can, that does make,
or say you relate it and you're like, say we figure out, I mean, this is totally made up, right? Say we figure out 1 million hair widths will get us across the street. okay, then what good is that? What good is that analogy going to do for us? You know, like, does that help you understand it at all? Except you say, oh, well, wow, that's big. But what you going to do with it after that? You know?
Yeah.
It's pointless.
I'm gonna have to start using that, man.
Well, I mean, if you're going to use it
instead of miles,
you should at least figure it out if you're going to use it. But
yeah, right.
But it's like, okay, they're kind of cute to come up with. You could come up with these analogies and relations, but when it comes to understanding large quantities, you know, it's really not helping out that much, right? You might as well just count zeros. Just say, okay, well, that's so many zeros, and that's related to something else in some other calculation. And after that, we don't care. You know, we don't care about visualizing it because it's not useful.
Yeah. No, it's not useful, but like to try to figure out the actuality of reality. I like
I suppose that has some entertainment value, you know, if you're gonna say like, oh well, this what is this, a Buddha?
Yeah.
This Buddha thing is made up of, you know, so many billions of atoms, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, great, now what? Right?
Yeah. Well, you know, infinity could probably be better experienced or understood without relating or without counting, itematizing, categorizing, interpreting, so that if you try to say, all right, infinity, if you try to compare it to numbers, like, all right, start at 0 and go negatives one way, positives one way, negative numbers one way, positive numbers one way, all the way to infinity. But on, like, either way, or just starting off at 0 and counting 1 to infinity, that we can't possibly understand. But if we just not do that,
people have a way of understanding it, right? They just say, oh well, you keep going, right? Just keep going, and that's it. Eventually, you know, you'll get there, right?
And then the thing is, if you get there, that doesn't make it infinity.
Yeah, practically, you're right. But you know, you could define some arbitrarily large number as sufficiently large.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how some calculations are done. You just say, oh well, this number is, you know, approximately infinite, and we'll use it.
Yeah. I mean, and there are some
bigger. What makes it infinite is usually that it's bigger than anything else you're using. So you just say, oh, well, this is way bigger than anything else in this calculation. It's so big that nothing else could ever come close. So therefore, it's big enough.
Bigger than everything. Bigger than all the atoms.
And you could come up with some other definition, right? You could say, well, if it was this much different, then the calculation would come out with this much error. So if we make it big enough, then the error should get small.
Oh.
It's supposed to, right? If you're doing it right,
the
error should get smaller.
Yeah, right.
As you improve your estimate, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have that property, you're probably doing something else wrong.
Yeah.
It's a little weird to talk about math without talking about math, but
yeah. What's sort of like we were talking about philosophy without philosophers.
Yeah, that's a little different. It's like
talking about philosophy, but you have to mention a philosopher said this or that, or had this sort of schematic design of thought, some sort of way.
Say you had the ideas paraphrased, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then then you could write about it without mentioning the philosopher, right?
Yeah.
So,
and so much of academia coming from the philosophy point, I had, like I was saying earlier, before the podcast, I mean, there are a bunch of classes I did not get A's because it took me years and years as an undergraduate
to shoehorn it into someone else's.
Yes, it took me years and years to realize that I thought that philosophy was all about creating original ideas. I thought that's what it's all about. But we're talking about academia here. We're talking about if you try to have an original thought, basically their attitude is you don't know enough yet to have an original thought. Like, how dare you try that kind of thing. You can write your own books, not in philosophy, but if you want to write philosophy essays, it better be on a philosopher or two, or more, of course. But it better be on a philosopher of some sort. Like for my master's thesis, it was Nietzsche. It was titled Nietzsche, Unconscious Processes and Nonlinear Individuation, the Will to Power as Unconscious Forces. Basically, I want to write a thesis on the unconscious mind. I want to try to explain the unconscious mind, the inner workings of the mind that we do not see, and try to explain the mechanisms for that.
It sounds more like a psychology topic than a philosophy topic.
Oh, well, since my background was in psychology and philosophy, I was trying to find a way to blend the two. You know, that's what I was trying to do too. Like, for years, how can I put these two together?
You're really trying to get these psychological ideas into the works of philosophers that predate the psychology, so they had no concept of what psychology was, really, right?
Well,
or maybe some of them did coexist with psychology.
I know, so that's what I was trying to show, though. So, like, Nietzsche, actually, that was one of my main original points. Nietzsche mentions the unconscious mind like 50 or 60 times before Freud. Freud is given all the credit for the unconscious mind, and he furthered it, but he furthered it to a large extent, like focused on it, whereas Nietzsche didn't. You know, he was like, he just wrote so much about everything that, you know, unconscious mind, though. But to me, Nietzsche was the father of psychology, you know, not Freud. And of course, you can argue it goes back further than that and all that stuff, but a lot of Nietzsche's views on the unconscious were brand new, and I forgot what my main point was.
So this sounds like interpreting someone's work in a certain way.
Yeah, and so I couldn't just make up a theory of the unconscious. You know, I could have tried. I would have wanted to. That would have been awesome. I could have tried, but
no one would have let you publish it.
No, I had to use Nietzsche. And, you know, I had to use him as a background, and I chose him because I just knew the most about him. I read all his books, and I already knew it. When it came time for me to make a decision on a thesis proposal, you know, I was like, well, I already know the most about him, and he's also actually considered himself more of a psychologist. He referenced himself as more of a psychologist than a philosopher, or at least that's what I heard. But yeah, so a lot of academia, huh?
I was gonna say, I wonder if that's to sound more sciencey, you know?
Yeah,
because maybe back then that was beneficial.
It's always beneficial to credibility, you know.
Yeah.
Like just any time, you know. You know, if you're talking about crystals and like, you know, if you're just talking about super flaky stuff, you know, that like crystals and stuff, you know, like but crystals are communication devices though. So, you know, I like to think about it like that. Quartz crystal is used in all forms of communication, right? At least it once was. And sonar, radar, television, satellite, cell phones, you know, like all forms of communication. So you could just make a leap of faith by believing in crystals as a form of communication into higher states of consciousness with meditation, through meditation.
That's kind of weird, you know. It's like saying you're going to look at trees as a form of communication because paper is used for communication, right?
Yeah.
It's a like the crystals used for radio were processed and cut and made into electronics, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So the paper, you know, if you say, "Oh man, trees, I'm gonna meditate." Yeah, but I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, either.
Well, they're kind of beautiful things, and you like to look at them, but
yeah,
I don't see any other significance, you know, as far as why you should meditate with that.
With trees?
Yeah, or with anything, you know.
Or crystals. Trees or crystals.
I don't see any like supernatural properties of meditation. So to me it seems like just do what's pleasant, you know.
But do you believe in meditation at all? But meditation, though, like from a Buddhist perspective, I go to a Buddhist temple every once in a while and hang out with the monks and meditate with. It's kind of like there's like 50 white people, you know, in a Buddhist temple, and it's kind of strange in a way when I first went with some monks. Some, you know, just normal people, regular Joes, you know, a couple people dreadlocks, you know, a couple, you know, this and that, but. As far as I understand, like in Buddhism, there is no God. That your mind is your God, and so going within, not looking without, you know, trying to reach for this God in the clouds, and praying to Him. Instead, you go inside yourself and find the intelligence and wisdom within yourself. You know, and mindfulness too. Like when your brain is going crazy with anxiety and thinking about a million things going on, it's just a process of slowing down your thoughts to the point of no thought and just being in the moment, to give your brain a rest, you know.
I'm cool with that, but I would say the superstitious components can go away as far as I'm concerned, you know.
Oh, okay.
like Buddhism definitely has some superstition in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like Nirvana and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Well,
doesn't it also have reincarnation? Isn't there something?
Yeah, with that? Some of it does.
Yeah,
some of the flavors do. Yeah.
So it's like.
Yeah.
I think different religions have different useful things in them, and there's a lot of stuff that's not useful, except to perpetuate the useful stuff.
Yeah.
Like tell some stories to make people observe the religion, you know.
Yeah.
But
well,
the stories are not the important part. The stuff is the important part.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not all important. Maybe it's just like whoever thought of it thought it was important.
Yeah. I know in the case of Buddha, at least, he tried fasting if he was a real person, if he was even a person who was actually alive at some point in history. But just to say, legend goes that he tried fasting, and that didn't bring him to enlightenment, or enlightenment. That didn't bring him to his highest state of consciousness, of conscious awareness. That can be practical and not spiritual or mystical. That, maximizing our minds, maximizing our brains, since our brains possess for us the most, since brains possess for us humans the most power in our minds, our consciousness has the most power, is our greatest asset. Then we should try to maximize it as much as possible. Our conscious awareness and our consciousness. So any practice that tries to maximize it, I don't know.
I'd say there's probably a limit to how much maximizing you need to do, or how much there's probably a point of diminishing returns. Where beyond that you're depriving yourself in other ways. Like you can't just sit there and think all day. You have to do work too.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself. You can't.
Like if you live in just a pure mental, spiritual, world, high state of consciousness, but you don't like try to find food and pay the water bill.
Yeah.
Pay the electric bill. Stuff like that. Give two shits about a job.
Yes.
Sit there on the mountaintop, just with a giant smile from ear to ear, like just observing eternity in the trees. You're going to die if you don't do something.
I think there have been monks that have done that, but they died, of course.
Yeah. That's a good way to die.
I don't know about that. Like, I wouldn't take anyone's word for it. Well, how would you know, right? They couldn't tell you after they die.
Yeah.
unless they tell you, oh, this is just awesome, as they're dying,
Yeah. But so the legend goes that Buddha tried fasting, he tried ritual, he tried all these things to bring him to his highest state of inner being, but none of those things worked. And what worked for him was finally in the end, because he had said, no, you need to eat and nourish yourself, to have energy in order to meditate. These rituals, they're not going to get you anywhere. They don't go anywhere. And so the only thing he found was to sit by it. He said, I'm going to sit by this tree and I'm going to meditate hard and go within and become pure mind as hard as I possibly can for like a couple of weeks, I think, until bam, like he became one with everything and realized that all is one. And so, but after his death, if some Buddhist temples are full of rituals and fasting and all of the things that he didn't want, that he said would not bring you to enlightenment. So you're saying that some religions can give and take certain things if you take the mystical aspects out. But I think that Buddha as a person, all of the rituals and the religious stuff that came with it, they created that after the fact. after his death, which is so like doesn't make any sense, you know. Or Taoism, there are no gods in the Tao Te Ching. There are no deities in the Tao, but in a Taoist temple, in some Taoist flavors, there are deities, and they're named, and they have properties, and all this stuff. And I'm like, what? You know?
It's not surprising to me. I consider all that stuff just made up. So
yeah,
the fact that they're different is unremarkable.
yeah. Or Jesus, if he was a real person who really lived, maybe he was just a super radical hippie dude, you know? He had a beard, sandals, you know, long hair.
Back then, beard was not that radical.
Well, he might have been like a dude from the 60s, but 2,000 years ago. And maybe none of the things that he talked about were actually interpreted. Maybe he didn't mean it to be that way. Maybe he was just had the message of, you know, anybody else from the 60s during all of the radical revolutionary movements. But he was just out of place and out of time, which made him popular for being a revolutionary. But after his death, maybe a religion was created after his death that had nothing to do with what he meant to happen. Buddha too. I'm pure speculation. I guess the point I'm saying is that I'm trying to get back. Sometimes I get so lost, like it's hard for me to get back, you know, into what I originally meant.
Mm-hmm.
But that's cool. I mean, going through labyrinths, you know.
So, I think religions have things in common that are not accidental, like, say, rituals, for example. Why do they have rituals? It's because people like rituals. People like to get together for a reason and do stuff.
Yeah. Like just like a social event.
Yeah, in some way.
And ritual, are people ritualistic? You think human beings are ritualistic?
I think so. It's just another addiction.
Oh yeah.
Like, look at some things that people do, right? Like they sit around and play video games, or they hang out with their friends, or they go drink. Like, why do people drink? Well, it's because their friends drink and they want to hang out with their friends. So yeah. I'm sure most people wouldn't drink if it wasn't a social activity, you know. So say like if it was like 1% of the population drank, mm-hmm.
you know, you wouldn't want to show up at a party with a beer. Not really, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you would only. But if everybody's drinking, and you're the only one not drinking, which is the case most of the time, then you're like, all right, you know, I want to fit in.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be a part of this circle of friends,
mm-hmm.
and so I want to partake in their ritualistic activities.
Or say smoking, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
At least at first.
Yeah, for sure. Like teenagers getting together, smoking cigarettes and stuff, because I guess, I don't know, it's like alcohol, you know, and it's bad to do. Like, it's naughty. You know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm bad, I'm smoking a cigarette, you know, or I'm bad because I'm drinking a beer, you know.
Yeah, so what was I getting off about? Rituals. I think religions have other features that help them maintain support among the people, you know.
I guess we're talking about. I was talking about meditation. You're saying I'm okay with meditation as long as it's not. There are no mystical aspects attached to it.
Yeah.
And like slowing down the mind, just to calm the mind to almost nothing, to give it a break, you know, is mindfulness.
Yeah, you can.
You don't need to have the mystical as the supernatural, the mystical, the superstitious aspects attached to that.
Yeah,
that's just what people do, and that's just what like religions do.
And people would do that naturally, I think, but somehow attaching it to a religion makes it better somehow. Like people feel like, oh well, the religion's telling me to do all this good stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know, when you're tired, you're just not going to think so much.
Yeah.
So, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like, say, the other things that religions often have in them, like don't lie, right? Well, anyone who's done a significant amount of lying will find out that it's trouble, right?
Yeah.
So, it seems like that would naturally work itself out too. You know, if you're a compulsive liar, you'll just piss everyone off and they won't talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you could save yourself the initial trouble of pissing everyone off by listening to, you know, some of this advice. But it's not original. It's like, you know, anyone who's done it before or known anyone who's done it could just tell you, oh, well, don't do that because people don't like it, right?
Yeah, I've even heard it gone so far. Someone said that all of your problems, you can avoid all of your problems by stopping lying.
I think sometimes it's necessary.
You know, white lies for sure.
Yeah.
You know, or you're gonna tell your girlfriend that she's fat in those jeans. You know.
It depends. It depends, right? Like, it depends on.
I mean, if you plan on getting some that night, you know, I don't know if it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, it depends on a lot of things. But
I guess it depends on, hey, maybe if you say that she's fat in those jeans, that
it could get better, right?
Yeah, maybe she might say, well, maybe I need to work out, you know.
Yeah.
Or she might say, oh, he's so honest.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying about the lying. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, some things, you know, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't, you know, fuck your neighbor's wife. Those are good things, you know. Those things will keep you alive. Don't murder.
And I think practically you don't need to tie all that up with superstition. And
yeah,
in society at large, we don't, right? We have laws that under certain circumstances, you know, not involving any religion or anything.
Yeah, like
provide consequences for certain things
to keep civilization together.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really just that simple. You want to have civilization or not, you know? So you can, if everybody just did whatever they wanted, raped and murdered and stole everything and law, every word was a law, you know. Yeah, you can do that, but guess what? You're not going to have civilization anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not going to be able to get together and like teamwork, get things done. You know, ever. We'll be like a, you know, Liberia or, you know, I'm trying to think of, you know, some places like that where there is no government and where things have really run amok, you know. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a Mad Max world.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know. So I mean, there's obviously some, do not murder. Is that I don't know. I'm more of a cultural relativist, and that thinking that, well, of course, murder is circumstantial. If you're in the military, you're paid to murder. You're trained and paid to murder. Murder is the name of the game in war, and the more the better.
Well, some people would,
but
especially like religious people, would say, well, if you're doing it for your country, then it's no longer murder.
Yeah.
Because that's how they reconcile the things that are in their books, right?
No, I'm not saying that I believe that, everybody in the military are murderers and murdering people. No, I mean, I think there are a lot of, most of them, of course, go in
I think it's all moot, whether it's murder or not,
Yeah.
Well, it's not, because we have laws, right? We want to enforce, we want to restrict who gets killed and why and all that.
Yeah.
But under those circumstances, different rules apply. So, it's not really.
It's not called murder.
Yeah, you wouldn't use the same term for it.
It's just not the same terminology.
It would be like, murder is like, I guess you could say by definition, it's some illegal killing, right?
Yeah. It's killing, but
well, accidental deaths, are those illegal? Accidental killings.
Sometimes you could be held liable, like vehicular homicide.
Yeah, so I guess technically it's against the law.
But it's just not.
But it's not. It's not like a prescriptive law. It's like a reactive thing.
Usually you're held accountable for that. You will be held accountable for some reason, like if
negligence or something.
Yeah.
Right? So it's different.
Yeah. Like, of course, if you're drunk and you wreck into somebody and kill them, then you can be incarcerated for vehicular homicide. I heard of a 18-wheeler driver whose tire blew up, and he crossed the median on the interstate and killed a family, and he was actually held accountable for negligence. And I was like, why? It's like, well, because they're supposed to make sure that their tires are properly, rotated and inflated and all that stuff like that. And I guess in this case, I don't know, they found some sort of negligence that he didn't take care of his tires good enough or something. But I know what you mean. So anyway, it's a murder is
it's a loaded term, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And I guess it's supposed to be, because when you use it, you're supposed to be like warning against it, right? It's usually how it comes out, or you're complaining about it. So there's going to be some negative association.
Yeah. I see.
Like, I don't think it's possible for it to not be loaded.
Yeah. Like, in the animal kingdom, murder is the name of the game. Like, animals kill other animals all the time for the sake of food. Mostly.
In that case,
is it murder?
Is it murder?
It's killing. It's ending the life of something else. But if you, I don't know, I guess if you use it, murder has a certain connotation, a certain interpretation.
It's usually a deliberate killing of something
for no particular reason,
in an unsanctioned manner,
for a not good reason.
Like
jealousy or something like that.
Yeah,
or self-gratification of some sort. But not out of hunger.
Or what if say your cat has killed a mouse, but it doesn't eat it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they do that sometimes.
Is that murder? The cat's not presumed capable of making moral judgments, so
I know. That's what I was about to say. That's all it's an issue that has sometimes come up in philosophy is, are animals able to be held morally accountable? Like if a bear kills a child, for example.
I think people do, whether it's I guess the moral aspect is really a social construct, right?
Yeah.
Beyond that, there's just a practical matter of, if you don't need the animal around and you can't be sure if it's going to kill another child, you care about children, so therefore you'll kill this animal.
Yeah.
Right. You won't have any great issue with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people just be pissed off and kill them,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes maybe someone might, maybe it's an endangered animal or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But
that's true. I mean, I don't know. It is a good question, though. Are animals, do they have any possibility of moral judgment? If an animal kills something but doesn't eat it, has it murdered it? And they do that. They do that. And sometimes they get in fights, like roosters or dogs or all kind of animals. They'll get in fights and kill another one and just leave it there. Is that a murder? But do they have the rational capabilities to understand what they've done?
I don't think it's...
do they even understand what death is? Like, as in being finite?
Well, what if they do? What if they're like just, what if the rooster walks away kind of proud he killed his, rival?
Oh, man, my cat, one morning, I woke up and I went outside and there was a rabbit, a small rabbit on the ground, dead, with like a rip in its back. And my cat was sitting on the porch just looking at it with the biggest smile on his face I've ever seen. Like, so proud. And I was like, and I first saw the rabbit, I was like, wow, that's weird. And I looked, I saw the cat, big gigantic smile, and I was like, super proud. And I was like, I was like, well, look at that. I don't ever actually know what happened to the rabbit. Wait. Actually, I did throw the rabbit's body into the sugarcane field. So I don't know what happened to it after that. But the cat didn't eat it. It just killed it. But the cat probably just was following its instincts because it eats food that I give him every day. But if he didn't have that food, then he would have to rely on his instincts. He would have eaten the rabbit, I bet.
Maybe.
Had I not I'm there to feed him every day. He doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to kill birds and rabbits. But the fact that he did, he might have satisfied some primal urge, some primal appetite urge,
to pounce on something.
Yeah, to kill something smaller than it. And that's another messed up thing too.
But that's what cats are, right? They're little predators.
They are predators, yeah.
So
there's prey, there's predators, and there's prey, and they are predatorial, for sure.
I think
that's just I don't know.
What kind of moral judgment would that be if we preferred non-predators to predators? Is that some kind of aesthetic?
Yeah, see, that's what I was about to think of too.
Because most people are opposed to parasites, right? It's like a very negative association that people have.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what
Definitely.
kind of parasite, whether it's an animal or a plant. It's usually harmful to better organisms, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, is there some way to talk about that? I don't know. Is it meaningful?
Well, it's like,
Probably not.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Because I think in the end, everything comes down to what's useful for us, right? And what's pleasing to us. Our judgments would be in line with that, you know. Whatever, you know, if there was some parasite that was really good for us somehow, then we might like it, you know.
Well, like probiotics, I wouldn't call them parasites, but they're bacteria. Probiotics are seen as a good thing, so you have like trillions of bacteria in your gut. that you know, probiotics are the opposite of antibiotics, you know. And so when you take antibiotics, you're supposed to take probiotics to combat the antibiotics, because the antibiotics can mess up your gut flora. So that would be a good example, like probiotics. Oh, here's good. Take this pill of 300 million good bacteria that you want to eat and put into your stomach. And that's like, whoa, you know.
That sounds like it could possibly be good. But then again, you know, there are people out there that would
sure
they would eat tapeworms, or you know, they
oh my God,
they put the leeches on their skin and all
that. Blood leaching,
yeah, and maybe those things, you know, under some circumstances are good.
Hey, you never know. I don't know enough about them, but
here's another thing maybe you didn't know. Mistletoe is a parasite.
Really?
Yeah.
The plant mistletoe?
Yeah.
Well, how's that?
It just grows on trees.
Oh, I see. Like it can't live without growing on a tree.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's true. Maybe I should look that up. Whether it can grow not on a tree.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, so definitely, all right, so I said earlier, murder is the name of the game, but I don't know, and then we said, no, I don't know about that. Oh, murder is the name of the game in nature, in the animal kingdom, that's what I said, I'm sorry, but I was like, I don't know about that. Murder, you know, it has certain connotations and interpretations to be under certain circumstances that really don't apply to animals that eat. And sometimes they do kill each other just for the hell of it, you know. But so that's more controversial. But one thing that is definitely a fact is that in the animal kingdom is that might makes right.
Mm-hmm.
So like might always, like, you know, it's the stronger versus the weaker. And then that in our human society is, you know, we have a lot of problems with that. Like that is, you know, in this day and age at least, people would never accept that interpretation that might makes right, or stronger should always subsume the weaker in some form or another. Maybe it's the weaker who are complaining about the stronger. You know, the more in the, you know, you got Einsteins and you got Arnold Schwarzeneggers, you know, and kings and peasants and Vikings and villagers. And I don't know. I guess it's because we're capable. And, you know, the bigger, stronger bear is going to kill this, you know, weaker bear, or the alpha male, you know, the one that is going to, you know, whoever wins the fight is going to have control over the females. Like, that's very common in the animal world, the mammalian world in particular.
I wouldn't say that that's a moral thing. It's just a pattern that, you know, that happens.
Yeah.
Because of like physical constraints and things like that, right?
Yeah. But, so, I don't know. I guess it's just because since we're humans since we have bigger brains, then we have more rational capability to realize that, and we're social. We have language to communicate. We have language to communicate with rational and logical capabilities, and so we can, yeah, you know, just have a discussion and talk about things instead of fight, and then whoever, you know, dies in the pool of blood loses.
Yeah.
Or wins, or it doesn't even have, it's not really a proper human conversation. It's not supposed to be one wins and one loses. Just to me, it's like about progress.
If we were super violent, I don't think we would even speak. There'd be no point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it'd just be like,
there'd be no cooperation. It would just be,
you run into somebody and you just kill them, you know.
Yeah.
Or get killed, you know.
Yeah. And most mammals, I think, are not like that.
Oh, yeah. I guess you have a good point there. So, like, they're not just like, you know, an elk sees another elk in the woods and doesn't immediately, like, just try to go kill him. Like,
yeah.
You know, he'll most of the time just mind his own business. You know?
Yeah, and maybe they'll just hang out.
Yeah.
And just stay together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's good. I mean, that's a good point. It seems like most animals just really want to mind their own business, I guess. So, like most snakes and spiders and all that, or I'll just stick to snakes. Most snakes are not violent. Like, they're not going to, they bite people sometimes, but usually because you step on them on accident in the high grass, or you step near them while they have eggs, or while a mother and when its eggs, and you step near it, or you step on it on accident, or you're walking in the dark, and you reach your hand somewhere where you don't know that where the snake is there. So, but they don't just like go after you. You know, a snake will always try to get away. You know, it will always try to get away. It will run for its life, and it really just wants to be left alone, and one really wants to just mind its own business. And the only time it gets violent is if you're trying to stop it from minding its own business.
Yeah. Well, when it eats, I guess you could call that violent.
Yeah, but I guess it doesn't have a choice, though. You know, I always say for people, you would eat anything if you were hungry enough. You know, but yeah, man. So so I see you starting to get tired.
No, my eyes are just burning.
Oh, okay. I don't know, man. I guess the biggest question is, this might be the biggest question. Why are your eyes burning, I wonder?
Don't know. Sometimes it happens.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that happened to me one time in here. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what happened. Just I was making a video and it just sounds like some dust or something. Some kind of harsh dust fell in my eyes or something. I don't know. I didn't get it.
Someone said maybe it's allergies, but
yeah,
I don't know.
You know, it might be the biggest question of all, unless you just throw it out as bullshit.
All right, let's hear it.
Why is there something rather than nothing? Like, that might be the biggest existential metaphysical question. Like, why, like the whole, I was talking about earlier, the God and the life force and energy and all of the, all matter and all this stuff. Where does it come from and blah, blah, blah. But I guess even bigger than that is, why does anything exist rather than nothing?
I don't know, but I also don't feel compelled to make something up. Like it doesn't.
I don't think you can. Like,
well, people do, right? Like the religious stories.
Oh yeah, creation,
stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it's God created it.
Yeah, and where did that come from and all that, right?
Yeah. And pretty much every culture, in every time period in the history of humanity has come up with their own version of the creation of the universe. It's always wildly different most of the time.
I think it's just natural to make up stories like that.
Yeah, you're camping out in the dark, in the middle of nowhere. There's stars all around.
And if you think about what resources, what knowledge they have, it's really not surprising that the stories are so primitive.
Yeah.
That they involve person-like things and animals and
it'd be
whatnot.
Easy to see, man. Imagine 10,000 years ago in China or something, and you have no education, but you see the sun, this big, hot, glowing ball, like a rise, and and fall and go, from one horizon to the next every single day. And the sun is it brings life, it brings warmth, it brings food, and it allows your crops to grow.
I wonder when that was understood, that the sun was involved in making plants grow and all that.
I'm sure people had to have known. People have been eating plants, forever. Maybe not everybody, but there was a bunch of people that said, wait a minute.
Probably when people started farming, they realized a lot of things.
For sure. Yeah, just rub your eyes, man.
Yeah, I don't know what else I can do about that.
Yeah. So, it would be easy to see, like pre-science, no education. And you understood that the sun caused life. And really, truly, like if anything is to be worshipped, it would be the sun. It provides life on this planet,
So did you ever think about, this is an interesting one maybe.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about when people realized that sex was the cause of pregnancy?
Oh.
So the theory is when people started farming, started raising livestock, is when they realized that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
At least on a large, widespread,
yeah.
scale.
Yeah, when they had to start breeding animals to make more animals to help out on the farm.
Yeah, because then it was testable. You could put the female in a pen or whatever.
Yeah, bull and a cow.
Yeah, or put the
horses or something.
Yeah, put the cow or the mare or whatever in a pen and keep the males away, which you can't do for a human, right?
Yeah.
Can't be sure that there's no visitors, right?
Yeah.
At least not ethically, right?
Yeah, it's just not ethical,
you wouldn't
lock a female up in a cage somewhere.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect.
Say, let's see if she gets pregnant.
Yeah.
And then throw a man in there, and then I know what you mean.
I mean, that's
and animals are gonna do it. They're just gonna do it, like you just put them together and just do it.
Anyway, that's something I read somewhere that that speculated that that's when people discovered that. Otherwise, they thought it was some kind of gift from the gods or something.
Yeah, I know. I never thought about that before, like people not realizing that that's what makes babies.
At least there were some people that didn't know, right?
I'm sure there are people now.
Maybe there were some that did know, kind of like there were people thousands of years ago that knew that the earth was round, right?
Yeah.
Of course, this was many thousands of years before that, before agriculture, basically.
Yeah.
When we would be talking about this.
So you think there were people that thought that knew that the earth was round? Like before Galileo?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Or was it Galileo was the one who basically said that the earth goes around the sun, not vice versa? And was it Copernicus was the one who first said that the earth was round?
I think so.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's something I should probably remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was this ancient Greek dude that figured it out.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That is super awesome. So a dude in ancient Greece figured it out. It doesn't seem like it would be too hard to figure out, really.
Well,
like, in a way, I don't know.
Well, he did better. He calculated the size of the Earth.
Wow.
Yeah. So he
pretty accurately?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, I think it was less than 1% error.
Wow.
What's that dude's name? You ever watch Cosmos?
I used to watch the Carl Sagan one. I've seen a few of those. I haven't seen the new ones with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Me either. I haven't seen the new ones.
But I really want to. I forgot about that. I really need to watch. But I've seen Cosmos.
So there's an old one that has a segment on this guy that did this calculation.
Wow.
But I'm trying to remember what his name was.
One of my friends was talking about he saw a documentary on the Flat Earth Society, and I wanted to join. I actually looked them up. Wanted to join just to be stupid, But I'm like, I really, really do not buy that. And he said, well, I was watching the documentary and thinking they had a couple of good points. Their perspectives that it's all conspiracy, because you cannot prove unless somebody else people have told you your whole life that the earth is round, but you personally cannot prove it. Like, you can't prove it from an experiential perspective that the earth is not.
I suppose it depends on your resources, right?
Well, yeah, if you didn't have satellites and technology and all that, but he thinks that that's what they say, at least. He's not a flat earthian or whatever you call him, but thinks that, I don't know. So what do you mean? Depends on your resources.
Like, say, what if you had a plane, right? A plane that could fly high, even.
Yeah.
Then I think you could tell.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Or,
if you just had like a plane that you built and you could fly really high, you know, to where, I don't know what you call it, maybe the stratosphere or really high up to where you could see the curvature of the earth.
Yeah.
Which I think that I think I have actually flying in a plane before, seen the curvature of the earth.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it, you know, in different situations.
Yeah.
But of course, the flat earthers would say that that's an optical illusion somehow.
Yeah. Well, what about the rotation of the stars, though? I guess it doesn't matter if the Earth is flat. It doesn't really. They're not really saying that it doesn't rotate.
Yeah, it could be like a coin flipping over and over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I would like to check it out. It'd be interesting to hear their logical reasons. But
So,
anything can be rationalized, you know.
So there's this. The guy's name is Eratosthenes.
Okay.
That's the guy that they calculated, you know, the size of the Earth.
Yeah.
And and basically he figured out that the Earth was curved, and then he assumed that it was a sphere, and then he did his calculation based on that. And the story goes something like he was in this city, and he read something about some shadows in this other city north from where he was. Like on a certain day of the year, then there would be no shadow on a post or whatever. You know, whatever's outside would have no shadow.
Yeah.
And that means the sun's directly overhead, right?
Right.
So he waited until that day of the year, and he saw, oh well, here we have shadows. So then he hired someone to walk to the other city, measure the distance, and he used that information to calculate it.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a pretty cool story.
With very few resources accurately measure the Earth. Wow.
Yeah, basically shadows and sticks and rocks and stuff.
Wow.
And feet, you know. That's kind of what Carl Sagan says in there.
Yeah. I mean, what was the diet of the ancient Greeks, you know, during that time period? I don't know, but I wonder what about them made them, you know, gave them such superior intelligence.
I think they were.
And now in Greece, I mean, there's really not too much going on intellectually, as far as I know. Could be wrong.
I think it was just an active place near the ocean, right?
Yeah. Sort of like one of those evolutionary.
Yeah, like some places are just hotbeds of civilization, you know.
Yeah. It was just the time.
For that time, you know, it was enough to be able to get around on boats and.
Yeah. Like an evolutionary boost, you know, like I was saying like earlier about the 1900s versus the 1300s or something, you know. So much progress happened during that time period.
And I suppose they were an agricultural society, right?
Yeah.
I believe like the grain mills that run on water were invented around that time. So people had a lot more free time. You know, they weren't just grinding these grains all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember when that was invented, but let's see.
Yeah, I mean, there's Greeks. I mean, there's Greeks were, I don't know.
So they say...
It would just be really interesting to know, and I know that's what you're trying to do right now.
Yeah, it says...
To figure out what made it so possible for people to have such superior intelligence that surpasses...
Well, I remember...
most people's intelligences to this day, you know?
I don't know if that's true.
But like the dude who calculated the earth with sticks and stones.
Yeah, but maybe that's all he did in the whole year, you know? Like, just think about that problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Now we have, so much else to do.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a lot more free time, which I know it's what you're looking up, but...
Yeah, it says here 3rd century BC. It's when it was first invented. Earliest record of one of these wheels, water wheel, you know.
But it is true that philosophy is a luxury in that. So, we have a lot more free time in the United States because we have machines, electrical machines like washers and dryers and all these things, so we don't have to wash clothes by hand all day long and grind wheat to make bread, all day long. Like a lot of these things, these chorist activities, just to be able to get by and barely survive, are all done by machines these days. Microwaves and stoves, you don't have to make like a fire. Just put your food on a stove and turn the knob and comes on like an electric stove. Especially, it's not even a real fire. It's just just an electric heat. You warm it up and that's it. And get on the internet and communicate with somebody instantly from the other side of the planet. All kind of different people at the same time. We have all kind of luxuries that afford us philosophy, which must have been the case in ancient Greece too, though.
Well, some of them
had to be.
Some of these guys were rich and they had slaves too, so
maybe slaves that afforded philosophy. Which would be a serious...
I'm sure to some extent, right?
Yeah, it had to be. Which would be like a serious ethical... I heard, though, before that slaves, like the connotation about slaves was not always the same as in modern times.
Probably not.
So, like, it was not a... degradation. It was not a, it wasn't that bad of a job to have. It was kind of like more of a, now, you could call a housekeeper a slave, or maybe they just have different terminologies, or carpenters and laborers of all types, those could all be called slaves.
I suppose the main thing that distinguishes slaves from us is that we have some kind of choice in what we do or don't do.
Yeah.
Slaves are much more controlled, right?
Yeah. But we're still slaves, though, to an extent. We're slaves to money.
Yeah.
God damn it. We have to have money to be able to survive and have freedom in this world. And that's
whatever passes for freedom.
Yeah, right. I mean, you don't have to have money to have fun and be happy and You could just go in the woods and, meditate and philosophize and think and write poetry and philosophy.
It's kind of a miracle that we have woods that we can go to,
Well, why? What do you mean?
Like, why is all the land out there not privately owned?
Oh, yeah.
It could be the case, but it's not.
No. Like state parks
Yeah.
are an amazing thing. I heard recently that I never even realized that, like, that is our land. Like, that is for us. You can just go there and partake in the beauty and joy of nature.
Yeah.
In the state park. And
that's probably the only place that you're guaranteed to be able to go.
Yeah. But I heard that a lot of other countries, though, we take that for granted, because a lot of other countries, they don't have that. And I'm like, wow. If you ever want to escape or get away here where we're at, just go to a state park. Mm-hmm. And they're usually huge. So you can isolate yourself if you want.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll never be taken away,
Oh, I think state parks and public libraries are the two greatest things ever, on the planet. For sure. Like, wow, you could just go to the library and you could get a college education at a public library if you really wanted to. If you put yourself through, if you had the self-discipline and the will and desire to, study deeply all of the subjects in a college curriculum, you could do that. You wouldn't get a grade for it or a diploma, but you could still do that for yourself personally. Same thing with in a state park. You want to go in the woods and be a part of nature and get away from society and all the things that we've built and culture. All right, you could do that. That there's a place of freedom, a place of both places, libraries and state parks are places of freedom that to most people just take for granted and don't even explore and enjoy. So, I guess we should probably wrap it up soon.
Sure.
But I always ask everyone a couple of questions. So what is the meaning of life? To you, what is the meaning of life? You can take your time and answer it, of course. And it's just your interpretation. Like, what is the meaning of life? I want to know everyone would. So I don't know,
All right, so I would say meaning presumes something is trying to communicate with us, right? Does that make sense? Like, if you're gonna say that something means something,
yeah,
then it should be some kind of communication from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't have any reason to believe that. So the question's kind of...
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you don't believe that there's any meaning to life?
Not really.
But, so is there anything that you substitute for meaning of life? Like,
I would say that...
What are we supposed to do here as human beings? Maybe that's a different way of phrasing it.
That's still, okay, to say that you're supposed to do something is kind of prescriptive, like,
okay.
you're being ordered to do something.
You don't have to do anything. You could just exist and die if you want.
Yeah, but I suppose practically, if you want to be what I consider to be a good human being, right?
Yeah, a civil and civil person in society.
Yeah. I would say that should be your objective in life, to be a good person and live a good life.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's actually two objectives, right? Or,
Yeah.
maybe more, depending on how you look at it. But
well, it doesn't matter. I mean,
just, maybe being pedantic here, but,
Yeah. Maybe being useful.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that's what you should focus on.
Yeah, because you brought up the word useful a lot,
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, useful. Like, just be useful.
Yeah. Well, don't just be useful. Try to
yeah,
enjoy things.
have a good time.
Yeah.
Where life is short.
Yeah.
We're all gonna get old and die one day, and so we need to, try to enjoy ourselves.
Yeah.
Before that time comes, while being a good person.
Yeah.
Not stepping on people's toes and stuff.
Yeah, I guess what does it mean to be a good person is kind of a big topic, but I don't think there's anything profound to be said there. It's kind of what you learn in kindergarten. Be nice to people, take care of your neighbors, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Basically, don't do anything horrible that is horrible.
Yeah.
And if you don't know those things already, then I don't know if you can be taught easily.
And a lot of people.
Yeah, because you're supposed to learn that stuff when you're young.
Yeah.
So if you don't learn it by the time you're listening to this podcast, I don't know if you're,
Yeah.
I don't know how to go about it.
Well, I know what you mean. Like, some people go to prison for life and they never learn because they just don't know how to act and what's right or wrong. Like, they don't know.
I think it's possible to know and still do wrong.
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like so you could be in prison. Like maybe you know how to be a good person, but you didn't do it.
Oh, of course. So you made a mistake,
Yeah, and I think that's usually the case, right? Like they're not, unless they're totally insane.
Yeah, a lot of people are like 18 and they killed somebody.
Yeah, and maybe that person had it coming, but that's just how we roll.
And then when they're like 52 in prison, they're thinking, man, I
wasn't worth it.
I would never do something like that these days.
Yeah.
I was just young and dumb, and I wasn't thinking, and the guy was picking for it, Like, I don't know, I'm sure there's millions of people in prison who say, "Oh, I would never do that." Now, it was years ago. It was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, but some people, they just don't get it though. They don't. But what's strange though is morality, quote unquote. My kids, at least the two boys for now, are naturally moral people. Like I'll push their buttons sometimes and try to tell them what not to do on purpose, just to see how they'll react, and they'll say, "No, that's not right," or "That's a bad word," or something, or even if it's not that bad, like "but," "That's a bad word," and I'm like, "Huh?"
At least between you and their teachers, they get a lot of input, right? And that's how people learn. It isn't because some book told them. It's because they were around people that weren't horrible.
Well, but like Slade and Pierce, before they started school, they still like I would try to teach them.
Or even TV and you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
you
I guess.
pick up so much stuff, right? If I think if you had
I guess I underestimate, maybe I'm underestimating how much kids pick up from external sources. But I'm telling you though, man, it just seems like to me that they just know, like, deep down in their mind what's right and what's wrong. And like from a naturally moral,
I don't know enough about child psychology to say when do they develop.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up sometime.
Capacity to imagine what the other person's going through. Right?
Yeah,
so, like sympathy.
Yeah.
I think that's when,
because they start off being really egocentric.
That's when they start getting the intuition about what's right.
Yeah.
As far as other people are concerned.
Yeah. Because they start off being very egocentric and thinking that them and the universe are not separate, and that it's like there's no separation between me and you. I mean, them and their mom or dad, and they don't even realize that. And they think if they're hungry, then everybody's hungry, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then at some point, they realize, or that any actions or consequences, they're just all, it's all the same for everybody and everyone. But at some point, they get the realization that I am separate from this other being, and that if I do something to him or her, then I wouldn't like that being done to me. That would make me mad or sad, so I better not do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to check that out.
And some of it is probably how parents treat their kids. Like say if your kid messes with you and you mess with them back, then they may connect that. Then they would say, oh well, maybe people don't like that, right?
Yeah, that's what I try to do.
Yeah,
that's what I try to do. Like,
and after a while, then it's natural.
Yeah.
And for people that aren't conditioned that way, it's got to be kind of rough. Like some of the people in prison maybe aren't conditioned that way.
Yeah.
They have to overcome it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, or like say if you just got beat all the time when you were a kid, and you wasn't even doing anything, like not doing anything wrong, nothing.
Yeah.
And so from a baby to a kid, you just, I don't know, you just mom or dad or whatever just started beating you out of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
And like that would probably like could mess you up because you wouldn't understand, like,
that it's not appropriate.
Yeah, or that you do something and get praise, and you do for something good, and you do something and you get beaten for something bad. But if you just get beat all the time, then it would be a lot more difficult for you to figure out. You would have to grow a lot older to realize that, hey, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
That you should be rewarded for good behavior. Or that people do get rewarded for good behavior. Not that you should, but that people just do because it's more useful. Yeah.
Because people like it. That's why.
Yeah. If you give somebody a compliment, that's useful. It's good. The other person makes them feel good, and it builds character and confidence in the other person, and inspires them to keep doing what they're doing that they're getting praised for. But if they're being scolded for something, then they might think about it at least. Man, maybe I should stop doing that. Except these days you're getting trolled and all kind of crazy stuff, which makes it more difficult. But yeah, so the meaning of life is Yeah. And what is your personal philosophy?
Kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I guess if there's no meaning to life, meaning of life, because that implies has implications.
Yeah.
Then
That has implications which I think are irrelevant.
Yeah.
And probably false. So
Yeah.
it's a loaded question, basically.
Yeah.
Right. What is the meaning of life?
Yeah, I could see that. But I guess, like, my son Pierce's answer is always that everybody love everybody.
I don't think that's possible.
But that's not. He's like, to him, he's thinking, what the meaning of life. It would be really nice if that was. I guess so. The meaning of life, like the meaning of life, that's like the big doozy, like,
is to make that happen.
But
try to make it happen.
I guess if you look at the meaning of life from a metaphysical perspective, is like we do because we're older adults, and then we say, well, the meaning implies meaning, but for him it's like meaning. I guess
for him it's just a question he's heard and he's going through some motions.
It's like, kind of like
it comes on TV and
not really meaning, but like, what is the purpose of life, or why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing with ourselves? How should we live? I guess those would be more in the line of everybody should love everybody. Or that everybody love everybody. That's what it always says. Like, what would be the ultimate niceness of human existence if everybody just loved everybody? That would be really nice.
And I guess
it's very idealistic for sure.
Yeah. And maybe all our needs would be met, something like that.
Yeah. They would be. But personal philosophy is a little bit different, I think.
I suppose it's not a question I get asked very often.
No, of course not.
Well, like, what's yours? Maybe I'll be able to figure out what
what's mine?
Aiming for.
Oh no!
Can you?
Well, let's see. Yeah, what is my personal philosophy? I guess that to experience. Well, mine's going to sound super flaky, but but still could be scientific too, though. Depends how you look at it. And that for us to realize that there's eternity in every moment, that like all of the eternal happenings in the universe are all happening right now. Like, don't worry about the past. The past has vanished. It's gone. It's gone. It's never to be seen again. The future only exists in thought. Like, the future doesn't exist. It only exists in imagination. So the only actual truth is going on right now. And that we should, at least from time to time, stop and enjoy eternity in every moment. Like the eternal happenings, going on, and stop living so much in the past and the past and the future. Like Lao Tzu said that living in the past causes depression and living in the future causes anxiety. You know, so like just being in the present moment, trying to live, like animals are the masters at living in the moment. I mean, we can't, you know, live in the moment all the time our whole lives, you know. Because, you know, we have to think about like past mistakes so that we don't make, history doesn't repeat themselves. We don't have to dwell on them though, like spend our whole life dwelling on the past.
Yeah, you can't take it literally.
You know,
you have to think about the past and the future sometimes.
Yeah. In the future, you know, you have to plan for the future, but you can't plan, like you shouldn't, or you can't really, you can't expect the future to happen exactly as you planned it to be, because because you can try, of course you can make goals, but it's a mistake to, if your life doesn't turn out the way that you expected it to you know, destroy yourself or be self-destructive or something, because mentally or physically, because or just be distraught because your life didn't turn out the way that you thought it would, because you made this plan and you didn't make any alternatives or options to that plan. So, yeah, I guess personal philosophy would be to try to live in the eternal moment at least as often as possible, as much as you possibly can. And well, that's what I try to do, at least. And at least a couple of times a day, which is more than most, and that to me keep you mentally healthy. And yeah, something like that.
That's a lot, and it sounds mostly related to how to be happy.
Right? Yeah, just be happy. You know, find a way to be happy. If you're not doing it, if you're not having fun, then you're not doing it right. You know, if you're not.
So I suppose if that's what you're aiming for, my philosophy about happiness is something like you should try to fulfill your needs and desires, you know, in moderation as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it's not always possible. So you have to be able to accept things the way they are and not torture yourself over it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Stoic philosophy.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And I think those are kind of the most important things for being happy, at least that I haven't already mentioned, you know.
Yeah.
I think most people kind of like the same things, you know.
Yeah.
They like hanging out with friends and,
yeah,
you know, learning new things and
yeah,
whatnot.
Yeah. But I don't know. So I guess we could wrap it up there.
Cool.
Have any last words?
Not anything in particular.
Yeah. Well, I guess.
Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah. 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 Don't worry, be happy. You know, just it's hard to do. You know, we live in the information age, and even just keeping up with information is, I like to try to. I think everybody, well, not everybody does, but I definitely do like to try to keep up with the, millions of tons of information being created every day from all of the sources, but man, like 90% of that is gossip and hearsay, really,
Yeah.
ultimately. And it's like,
And what isn't is often recycled.
yeah, I know. Yeah, like even in academia.
Yeah.
Because I miss peer-reviewed journals, but I don't know, even those are just writings that even those are mostly recycled. It's rare. It's rare that there's a new breakthrough. And if there is, in science or medicine in particular, nutrition is just as debatable as politics. And it's the big mess of, you look up, is something good for you, and the whole Google page will come up, and then you type in such and such, is broccoli good for you? Whole page will come up. Is broccoli not good for you? A whole page will come up. It's a cruciferous vegetable, and it's hard in the digestive system and all this stuff. And then, of course, the other side, it's highly nutritious, and they just don't talk about the digestive part. So I don't know. It's good. That's an example, but keeping up with the mountains and mountains of garbage information piling up.
Yeah.
And just trying to be in the moment and be happy. Probably be better off getting away from technology, but at the same time, technology is one of those things, a double-edged sword, It allows for communication and information, but then you got to sift through it all. Then you have to really put on your critical thinking skills to decipher the essential from the inessential. And that takes a lot of time and energy,
Yeah.
Instead of just like getting on with your life and just like doing something,
Yeah.
Like fucking getting in a boat and going like want to ride in
Going fishing.
yeah. Yeah, it's like go fishing or something, or just go sit in the woods.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like everything else.
I think it's definitely easy to get stuck in the headlights, with all this information.
Oh yeah.
Turns us into spectators rather than doers,
Yeah. I know.
You need to be something in between, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't work in ignorance, but you can't just read all day. Read not just all day, but your whole life.
Yeah. I know.
You have to stop and do something.
It's kind of
well,
like,
strictly speaking, you don't have to, right? You could just sit there and chill and be entertained.
you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. But I suppose
but die.
If you're looking for
It's the only thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
Is die.
I suppose if you're aiming for a satisfying life,
Yeah.
you have to get out of the crowd once in a while and do something.
Yeah, I know. I actually thought about that this morning. Yeah, today I thought about that. I was telling my friend that alternatively, if I had not had a family, and I was single, I think a great life would be to just stay in school forever, like just get like 3 PhDs and just like live on campus forever and all that. And I thought, man, that would be an awesome life. Or that a lot of professors, they basically go to school, don't want to get a job, go to PhD program, and just stay in it to where they don't have to get a job. Not all of them, but some of them do. And one of them, my professor friends told me that's what he did. And then you get out of PhD program, like, well, and he asked somebody, well, so now what? It was like, well, you gotta go teach. It's like, teach what? It's and so psychology. Oh, and so he went to the academic world and just, but the thing is, so I'm willing to, I guess I'm saying that, like, so a lot of professors probably do that. They say, well, I'm just going to stay in the college life forever. That's the greatest. But then I'm willing to bet that some of them, at least at some point when they're 40, 50, whatever, stop and think, man, I never really, I never been in life, I've just been in books and books about books and studying books about books or studying the writings of one person. Like the university I went to, there were some Heideggerians, professors who specialized in Heidegger, which is a very controversial dude, but whoever it is, but in those particular cases, they were Heidegger scholars. So they basically spent their whole lives reading about and teaching about Heidegger. And I thought, man, that's kind of messed up. You're not even spending your life reading and researching about your own books, but about somebody else's book, particularly the Being in Time, that one main book. And he wrote other books, but that was the main book, so I don't know. So I thought, well, so this is the life I chose, and I wanted to be a family man and having like a job and stuff, self-employed and all that, but still, and I thought, well, it's not a bad life. And then I thought about the life that I always, the other side, you always dream about, what if my life were different? Then it would be a lifelong student. But then I'm sure as an old man, I would think, man, but I never really participated in life, in living. I forgot that all of this research and studying was supposed to be about preparing myself on how to live.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's one of those things too, man. Like the man who does mental work all day sitting behind a desk probably sees the man out the window, I don't know, working on a tree, cutting down trees like you and your dad were doing yesterday. But for a job, probably think, man, that would be nice. I wish I was out there in the sun cutting trees or building a house or something, Man, I wish that's the life I would long for. And then the man who's always out, like, physically exhausting himself, working, building the houses and cutting down trees, is probably looking at the man in the air-conditioned office at the desk thinking, oh, man, I wish I could be that dude, Mm-hmm. So no matter what life you live, you're always wishing that it was something different, which of course is a mistake, but it's just hard for us not to see that, which comes to, like you said, well, I'm blanking on the word, the stoic, the median, you know, moderation in the median.
Yeah.
Or variety. Alan Watts always said the variety is the spice of life. You know, don't spend all your time behind a desk in the AC. Spend some time outside cutting down a tree. Do both, you know, or you're not going to be happy. So I don't know. I always thought being a librarian would be one of the greatest jobs in the world, but a lot of them probably get sick of it, you know. Staying in the library all day and night, every day, you know. They want to just go outside, sitting under fluorescent lights in the freezing cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, so check out my book, Eternal Conversations, Reflections and Illuminations for Higher Existence. The link is found below on Amazon. Check out eternalconversations.com, the Eternal Conversations podcast. And peace, love, and light.